Gavin and Wen, live here at a vote center at Chapman University, where I'll be talking to you about today's Super Tuesday election and voter turnout. Stay tuned.
Some areas of Northern California are buried under 10 feet of snow, and more is on the way. We'll tell you about the impact of this year's biggest storm.
I'm Mona Patterson at San Onofre. Surfers love this classic beach in southern Orange County, but access to the waves is getting harder. I'll have more just ahead.
From Dodge College of Film and Media Arts, this is Chapman News.
Good afternoon and welcome to this week's edition of Chapman News. I'm Tegan Callie.
And I'm Tess Martinelli. Today is Super Tuesday, a big day in U.S. politics.
That's right. Today, voters in California and 14 other states have their say in the primary elections.
Our Chapman News reporter Gavin Wynn is live at a polling place on the campus of Chapman University. Gavin, how are things looking right now?
Tess, Tegan, things have been relatively slow and steady at Chapman University's vote center, the one right here behind me. And I was talking with one of the poll workers inside, and he said there's been about 100 voters so far, which has been a steady mix of both Chapman students and Orange residents, as well as some non-county voters as well. Now, I talked with Bob Page yesterday, the registrar of voters here in Orange County, and told me this is something to be expected, the low voter turnout. Well, because primary elections like today, they're important, but they simply don't get as much attention from voters as something like the general election that we'll have later this year in November. Now, as of right now, just about 16% of all voters here in the county who are registered to vote, that's under 2 million people in the county so far, have not cast their vote yet. Now, Page did say that he's expecting a bit of a surge today on election day, which is typical for elections like this, of both mail-in voting drop-offs and in-person voting like at a location like the one here behind me. Now, despite all of this, with all of this low voter turnout, he is encouraging all OC voters to get out tonight and vote by 8 p.m. Let's take a look.
There's plenty of local issues for people to come out and vote on. Even if they aren't interested in voting for a presidential nominee, there's plenty of other things. They can vote for whatever they want. We're here to serve them to make sure they can exercise that right to vote.
Now, if Bob just convinced you there, or if I can convince you to come out and vote, a great place to do it would be here at Chapman University Voting Center, maybe at the Orange Public Library in Orange, or if you need to look for a vote center that is closest to you, you can go to ocvote.gov/voting. That's ocvote.gov/voting. Remember, all lines are going to close tonight at 8 p.m., but be sure to get out there, vote tonight. Looking forward to it. I'm reporting live here in Orange at Chapman University for Chapman News. I'm Gavin Nguyen. Back to you.
Thanks, Gavin. Moving on to the national political scene, former President Trump is expected to win big in today's Super Tuesday primaries. Over 1/3 of all Republican delegates are up for grabs, making the winner of today's primaries almost certainly the GOP nominee. Nikki Haley, who won her first contest in Washington, D.C.'s primary on Sunday, looks to gain ground on former President Trump. However, according to CBS News, Trump leads Haley by at least 24 points across all states voting today. Another obstacle for Haley is the larger states, California and Texas, which are winner-take-all, meaning she will have to win over 50% of the votes to gain any delegates. However, at a rally over the weekend, Haley pledged to stay in the race.
Why I'm not getting out of this race? Why does she keep fighting? What's she doing? Well, first of all, when 70% of Americans say they don't want Donald Trump or Joe Biden, yes, I'm going to keep on fighting.
If the polls are accurate and Trump does dominate today, he still cannot actually lock up the GOP nomination until next Tuesday at the earliest.
Former President Trump is on the Colorado primary ballot today because of a new Supreme Court decision. In the unanimous ruling, the justices yesterday said Trump cannot be left off the ballot in the Rocky Mountain state. It is expected that the decision will impact other states that are attempting to keep Trump off the ballot. But attorney Jason Murray, who argued before the court to disqualify Trump, says that is not necessarily true.
And so even though it made procedural determinations that Colorado as a state couldn't enforce Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, the issue of Donald Trump's eligibility for the office of the presidency remains very much a live issue.
The Supreme Court did not address the question of whether Trump violated the insurrection clause of the 14th Amendment with his role in the riot on the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021.
Voters in Huntington Beach will decide today on 3 measures that could change how the city is run. Chapman News reporter Alexandra Konyarts has the story.
The 3 measures put before Huntington Beach voters are supported by the city council's conservative majority. Kathy Ryder is a longtime Huntington Beach resident and co-founder of Protect HB, which describes itself as a grassroots group of residents looking to protect the city's future. Protect HB opposes all 3 measures. Ryder says the proposals came as a surprise.
Council ran on no changes to our charter. Our charter was perfect in 2022. They formed a small committee of 3 council members, came back with about 18 proposals with no public input, even though our charter clearly states that your charter should be reviewed by the public. So right away, there was no real accountability or transparency.
The first measure might require voters to show identification at the polls. Although most states require voter ID, it is currently illegal in California, and voting rights activists argue it disproportionately impacts lower income and non-white voters. Andrew Bush, professor of government at Claremont McKenna College, says the controversial issue of voter identification is seen differently by the political right and left.
So some people see this as a kind of violation of their civil rights, and other people see it as fundamental and a very simple step to making sure that the election is honest.
The second measure would restrict which flags are allowed on city property. Pride flags would be excluded. The measure would require a unanimous vote from City Council for any commemorative flag other than the Olympic flag to be flown on city property. Former Huntington Beach Mayor Coney Borden says in her 8 years on City Council, she never saw an issue that required a unanimous vote.
This is just a sneaky way to make it as hard as possible for future councils to not be able to fly the pride flag in June from city facilities. Intolerance does not belong in our charter.
Signs urging both yes and no votes can be seen all across Huntington Beach. But one indication of just how heated this election has become was recently when more than 50 of those were vandalized. Now, Kathy Ryder does tell me that Huntington Beach was not always this politically divided.
Starting in 2016, 2017, it became very obvious that it was about us versus them. This is a nonpartisan position. I shouldn't know if you're a Republican, or I shouldn't know if you're a Democrat. But unfortunately, we've been forced into that corner.
This is Alexandra Konyarts reporting for Chapman News.
The third measure would alter city council procedures and the city's budgeting policies. According to Protect HB, residents are paying nearly $500,000 for these changes to be put on the ballot.
A new United Nations report says there is clear evidence that Israeli hostages in Gaza have been sexually abused. After reviewing hours of footage and interviewing a number of witnesses, UN officials say that there is also definitive evidence of rape during Hamas's October 7th attack. The UN report also says that there are, quote, reasonable grounds to conclude that sexual violence against the Israeli hostages still being held in Gaza is ongoing. Israel is under investigation for its treatment of Palestinian prisoners held in the West Bank city of Ramallah. The UN team says it has found limited incidents of sexual abuse there. Meanwhile, the U.S. military continues its airdrops of rations today, dropping 40,000 meals over Gaza. The World Health Organization says 500,000 people in Gaza are facing starvation. Also, there are reports that ceasefire negotiations taking place in Cairo have stalled.
Police are on the hunt for 3 suspects involved in a mass shooting at a birthday party in Monterey County. Police say the suspects drove up to a party on Sunday in King City and opened fire on guests. 3 men were pronounced dead at the scene, and 1 woman was rushed to the hospital where she later died. Police say the suspects wore dark clothing and masks and were driving a silver Kia. Authorities are offering a $20,000 reward for the information that leads to the arrest of the suspects.
Interstate 80 in Northern California is finally reopened after the Sierra Nevadas got slammed by the largest storm of the season. Some parts of the Sierra got up to 10 feet of snow. Ski resorts across Lake Tahoe region saw impressive snow totals as well, but some had to close due to dangerous conditions and the threat of avalanches. On a positive note, the blizzard has provided a huge boost to the state's snowpack.
On January 1st, we were about 3 inches of snow water content. On February 1st, 10 inches of snow water content, and now we're at 18. So we have built really nicely.
And more snow is on the way. The new storm is expected to impact the Northwest. Alexandra Konyarts will have more on the NorCal snowstorm story later in this newscast.
It's mentioned in the Beach Boys classic Surfin' USA, but surfers are having a harder time getting to this iconic California beach. We'll have that story coming up.
I'm Alexandra Konyarts. Coming up, I'll have your weekly weather forecast, as well as more on the storm that, as you can see from these images, left towns in the Sierra Nevada buried in snow.
The black truck? Hey, Christina from accounting.
Yeah, hi.
Hey, I used to date a girl named Christina.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then she dumped me for my best friend. You want to see some photos of them that I took?
I don't.
I thought we talked about this, buddy.
Buzz and overshared again?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna call a car.
That's a smart idea.
So yeah, I know, that's why I did it.
Hey, you're gonna get back to the top of the mountain.
Does that mean I'm gonna get back with Christina?
No.
Oh.
No.
When you adopt a shelter pet, you discover their unique mix of all kinds of traits.
Where'd Wiley go? Where's Wiley? Ah, there she is. Paw?
Do you remember being an ancient wolf? Do you ever feel the call of the wild?
You're a renegade cop, and I'm a con woman with nothing to prove. But together, we could really solve this murder.
They're a little bit of a lot of things, but all of them are pure love.
A vacancy on the Yorba Linda City Council has been filled, although only temporarily. Peggy Wong was appointed to fill former council member Gene Hernandez's seat after he resigned to take a position on the Yorba Linda Water Board. Wong is returning to the council. She previously served as a council member for 8 years. She works as a city attorney for Huntington Beach. The seat is up for grabs in this November's election. Wong says she will not be a candidate in that election and will only serve through the end of this year.
In southern Orange County, beachgoers are facing challenges accessing the surf. Chapman News reporter Mona Patterson has the story.
San Onofre has a special place in Southern California surf culture. Surfers say it's right up there with other iconic locations like Malibu and Manhattan Beach. It was even mentioned in the Beach Boys classic Surfin' USA. But now there is real concern about the future of San Onofre. California State Park staff tells me how recent erosion has restricted access to the beach.
We had to close the lower lot at Sano because of erosion on the bluff and major damage to the parking lot. We've had lines that can last up to like 3 hours here, just depending on the day, because we only have 24 spots open right now.
While recent heavy rainstorms in Southern California have not helped, San Onofre Surfing Club board member Bobby Lombard says erosion is actually not caused by environmental factors.
Yeah, this is non-related to natural causes. This is a man-made error here.
Instead, Lombard and others say the damage at San Onofre Beach is a direct result of a faulty drainage system meant to keep the bluff above from collapsing. A large pipe was overwhelmed by the recent rains and burst, which wiped out the entrance to the surfing beach. Environmental scientist Dr. Riley Pratt told the Orange County Register that state staff and teams from Camp Pendleton have also been working to address the issues of the drainage pipes and resulting road damage. Meanwhile, the San Onofre Surfing Club is optimistic that lessons have been learned from this mistake and that future issues will be fixed before they turn into problems.
They've learned, of course, because of what happened here, what not to do or what to do to prevent it from happening again.
It is hoped that full access to San Onofre will be restored in time for summer, and surfers hope that the Southern California treasure will get the care it deserves. I'm Mona Patterson reporting for Chapman News.
Polls indicate California Senate candidate Democrat Adam Schiff and Republican Steve Garvey are in a statistical tie ahead of today's primary election. Schiff was here in the city of Orange last weekend for a small rally and meet and greet, one of his last campaign events before voters finish casting their ballots today. Schiff reminded the crowd of his policy proposals and track record, including a major role in the first impeachment of former President Donald Trump in the House of Representatives. Many of his supporters we talked to cited this as one of the main reasons that they support him.
Because we believe that democracy is on the line in this election, and he's going to be the one to protect it in the Senate.
But the rally was also met with opposition. A handful of protesters disrupted Schiff's speech, shouting that he supports, quote, genocide in the Middle East. They were escorted out of the event by security.
We are continuing our coverage of Super Tuesday and the presidential race.
Chapman Assistant Professor of Political Science, Dr. Hannah Ridge, joins us today in studio. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So let's start with your views on why Super Tuesday is so important.
Super Tuesday is the day in the primary season where the largest bundle of electoral votes is going, or primary votes is going to be determined. About a third of the Republican votes, for instance, are going to be cast today. And that means it has a lot of opportunities in most years to inform who's going to be the nominee.
Absolutely. And right now, President Biden is the presumed Democratic candidate and Donald Trump is the leading Republican candidate, yet Nikki Haley is refusing to drop her campaign. Do you think that there is any potential that she could win the nomination?
Her road forward is very narrow in that respect, given the structure of the primaries in many of these states. For instance, a lot of tendency, especially going forward, towards winner-take-all primaries. That said, there are still reasons for her to participate in continued races. For instance, if she wants to have enough delegates given a brokered convention, if Trump is removed from candidacy, she might want a strong position in that framework. There's also rules in the Republican nominating policies that mean that if she has enough delegates or has won enough states when she arrives at the convention, she can force issues onto the floor at the convention, which might be something she's interested in doing. She is also holding on to the idea that many people in the electorate overall are not satisfied with Biden or Trump as nominees and might see an avenue forward as a different voice.
Some Democrats are concerned about independent candidate Robert Kennedy taking votes away from President Biden. Do you see that as a real possibility?
It's not something that's never happened, but many elections removed from that happening. For instance, Ross Perot winning many votes in the 90s. That said, we're even further removed from a third-party candidate actually winning electoral votes in the Electoral College. And so it's possible, but I think a bigger threat might just be voters not voting at all rather than voting for a third-party candidate.
And then finally, what is the significance of the Supreme Court ruling that Trump will remain on the Colorado primary ballot?
Logistically, the ballots were already printed and he was going to appear on it, but it means those votes can now count. In practice, what it means is that the question is still open as to whether or not Trump can be seated as president of the United States given the events of January 6th, but it allows him to continue running in the meantime.
Well, thank you once again for joining us today. Chapman Assistant Professor of Political Science, Dr. Hannah Ridge. The city of Buena Park is exploring a series of measures which supporters say is focused on workers' rights and protections. The measures being discussed include a guarantee that workers will know their schedule 2 weeks in advance and receive extra pay for last-minute changes. Another proposal would require that freelance employees receive a contract if they are paid more than $600 a year by the same company. Councilmember Connor Trout told the Voice of OC he wants to empower workers and set a clear standard. The lawmakers may also consider an ordinance protecting working animals, which would impact Knoxberry Farms and Medieval Times, both of which are in the Buena Park area. It could cost you a little more to visit Hawaii in the near future. Lawmakers in the Aloha State have proposed a $25 climate tax to be paid out by tourists. Hawaii is recovering after the devastating wildfire in Lahaina, Maui last year that killed at least 100 people and caused $6 billion in damages. The $25 tax would generate $68 million in revenue each year, and those supporting it say it could be used to protect beaches and prevent wildfires. Hawaii Governor Josh Green calls the tax, quote, a very small price to pay for the preservation of paradise. Other popular international travel destinations that have a tax for tourists include Venice, Italy, Greece, and New Zealand. Personally, I'm willing to pay a little extra for a few days in paradise, especially with the chilly weather we've been having here in California.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping for some warmer weather in the next few weeks. Alex, what do you got?
Thank you, Tegan and Tess. The winter storms hitting the Sierra Nevada region has so far been the coldest and snowiest one this year. Snowfall rates ranged from 2 to 4 inches an hour, and as you can see in this video, the region experienced dangerous whiteouts, blizzard-like conditions, and hurricane-force winds. Several areas in the Sierras, such as Sugar Bowl and Soda Springs, received over 8 feet of snow since the start of the storm last Thursday morning. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration reports that just under 11 feet of snow have fallen on the highest peaks of Lake Tahoe. Even though the storm started to let up a bit, it is not over yet, and the second storm system is currently passing through the region and could bring an additional 1 to 2 feet of snow. The blizzard warning ended last Thursday, but a winter storm warning is in effect through early tomorrow morning. Now, as for the weather here in Southern California, it is pretty different than what our friends in Northern California are experiencing right now. Here in OC, it's currently an average 65-degree day. Nice sunny weather as well as some clouds, but nothing too severe. As for your national weather forecast, starting out on the East Coast, after experiencing an unusually warm weekend, they are going to be experiencing some colder temperatures with rain to be seen in New York, DC, and Atlanta, as well as some clouds down in Miami. Moving on inland, I want to bring your attention to Houston, which is experiencing a warm 83-degree day right now after they had some devastating wildfires this past weekend. Luckily, things are starting to get back into control today, so hopefully people are able to stay as safe as possible. Moving on to the West Coast, starting out in the northwest part of the country, Seattle finally experiencing some sunshine after the wet week they had last week with a lot of rain and snow, yet still definitely on the colder side, but nothing unusual. Moving down the coast, we have San Francisco at 58 degrees today and cloudy, and Las Vegas at 66 degrees and sunny. I'm sure they'll be appreciating that sunny temperature there. Moving on to your OC forecast, as we start on their coastal city, 65 degrees in Newport Beach. That's going to be your warmest coastal city. So if you are planning to go to the beach today, I highly recommend Newport. Laguna at 62, quite different than last week. And as we go on inland, higher 60s up in Orange and Westminsters. And your mid 60s is what you're going to be seeing in Irvine and Mission Viejo today. As for your 5-day Finestro forecast, today is going to be one of your warmer days of the week. Tomorrow, things are going to be cooling down quite a bit, and we are going to be experiencing some rain, so make sure to stay as dry as possible. But luckily, things are only going to be warming up as we go into the weekend. Saturday, you can expect a beautiful sunny day with 70-degree weather, 48-degree lows, so make sure that you go out and get out that vitamin D while you can. This is Alexandra Conyards with your weekly weather forecast. Back to you at the desk.
A plan to spotlight the Little Saigon community here in Orange County is running into trouble. We'll have the full story coming up.
I'm Kate Worsham. Coming up on Chapman News, we'll talk racing, broken records, and our Chapman Athlete of the Week. Stay with us.
Adrenaline coursing through your body. And you are calling the shots. Feel the power as you control the game's narrative. From commentator to camera virtuoso, replay wizard to unyielding director. There is no better experience than being in the moment. Challenge your limits and embrace the electrifying rush that comes with the crowd's roar. You never know the epic plays you will capture and the masterpiece you could make. You could be an amateur learning on the fly or a pro wanting to expand your skills. You will always fit in. And what better place to broadcast your skills than in sports? Never knowing what is coming next and always coming across something new. Join the Chapman Sports Broadcasting Network and experience the thrill of life.
The plan for a welcome archway for Little Saigon here in Orange County might not be happening after all. Located in the cities of Westminster and Garden Grove, Little Saigon is home to the largest Vietnamese community outside of Vietnam, with a population of about 190,000. Last May, Orange County 1st District Supervisor Andrew Doe proposed placing an archway over Bolsa Avenue to welcome visitors and committed $1 million from the district's discretionary funds. However, he has now requested the city of Westminster refund the money. Doe says the project is proving to be more expensive than he expected. It could cost as much as $2 million, and the city of Westminster says it cannot afford to contribute to the project.
Tess, did you catch the race in Bahrain this weekend?
Does that mean what I think it does?
That's right. Formula One is back, baby. Kate Worsham has that and all your other motorsports news.
You guys are definitely right about that. I'm Kate Worsham, and welcome back to the Best Campus Sports Show. The end of February means the start of racing, so we're going to start this week talking motorsports. NASCAR has been on track the longest, and the Kyle Larson win on Sunday means that Chevrolet remains undefeated on the season. The wins by Larson, William Byron, and Daniel Suarez only count for the Cup Series portion of that record, as Chevy has also swept the Xfinity and Truck Series. It'll be up to the rest of the field to put a stop to their run this weekend in Phoenix. For what Formula One may be lacking in competition, it is definitely making up for in drama. In a crazy offseason that saw investigations into 2 team principals, an Andretti bid into the field rejected, 2 team rebrands, and Lewis Hamilton announcing a move to Ferrari in 2025, there was a lot to watch for at the first race of the season Saturday in Bahrain. The Grand Prix saw Max Verstappen dominate with a 22-second win. But what's new? More exciting were the moves to the podium by Sergio Perez and Carlos Sainz Jr., who would go on to place second and third. F1 will be headed to Saudi Arabia this weekend, and maybe we'll get to see somebody break Verstappen and Red Bull's untouchable win streak. Now that I've gotten all of that out of my system, let's talk national sports news. University of Iowa's basketball superstar Caitlin Clark has broken a 54-year-old record. Clark has passed Pete Maravich's Holy Grail record to become the highest point scorer in NCAA Division I history. But she said she wasn't really thinking much about it.
Not really, but then when they announce it and everybody screams, that's when I know, but pretty cool.
Clark announced recently that she will be declaring for the WNBA draft after her final season at Iowa. The Chapman men's golf team opened its spring season with a standout performance. In the team's first tournament, sophomore Connor Conley led the way, and he's our athlete of the week. The Panthers matched the best team round in school history with a score of 3 under. They finished 5th overall in the tournament. Ben Soysher and Connor Conley led the team with scores of 2 under and 1 under. Despite his impressive score, Conley says he wasn't satisfied with his performance and didn't even know they had tied the school record.
Looking back at it, I think that's super exciting for us as a whole. I wish we made a couple other more putts so we could have shattered it, but we'll do that next tournament.
The team will compete next in the Cal Lutheran Invitational early next week. That's all from me today. For the last time, this is Kate Worsham at the Sports Desk. Thanks for letting me talk racing again and again. Back to you, Tegan and Tess.
Thanks, Kate. Starting in April, some South Orange County residents may need to leave home earlier for their daily rail commute, as construction is set to begin on the San Juan Capistrano Railroad Bridge. The century-old bridge will be replaced with a 3-span girder bridge. The bridge will remain open during construction, but both commuter and freight train services are expected to experience delays. The walking and bike trail along San Juan Creek will be temporarily closed for the duration of the construction, and officials have not yet announced the closure date for the trail. For the latest updates on delays to the rail service, check the MetroLink website.
I'm Dan Batson. What's better than tacos? Well, not a whole lot, but I got to sit down with the owners of Mondragon Family Market in Anaheim to learn how they make theirs so tasty. For that and much more, stay tuned here on Chapman News.
When I was your age, I was just like you, fascinated by stars. But now I get to search for life in the universe. And who knows, maybe life is looking for us too.
So we're like aliens to them?
Yeah. Does anyone want to be a scientist now?
I do.
Awesome. We need more girls in STEM.
Maybe we can find aliens.
As voters are taking to the polls, student veterans, including a group from Chapman University, are in the nation's capital. Chapman News reporter Kyle Carr is in Washington, D.C. with the report.
Thank you, guys. That's right. I'm here in front of the Capitol building where student veterans across the country are here for the Student Veterans of America Washington Week. This is Chapman University's first time having representatives attend. Chapman veterans Jake Slocum and Devansh Mehta will get to meet the California policymakers and participate in various lectures and social events to network with fellow veterans. Events start today and will continue until Thursday. From Washington, D.C., for Chapman News, I'm Kyle Carr. Back to you.
It's been a mystery for 10 years, but now there could be a new effort to find out what happened to a plane that is believed to have crashed in the southern Indian Ocean. Malaysia officials say they may renew the search for Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 after a Texas-based company, Ocean Infinity, says it's new technology that could possibly locate the plane. The company previously searched a different location in 2018 with no luck. Flight 370 had 239 people on board when it disappeared after takeoff in March of 2014. Debris washed ashore on the east coast of Africa and Indian Ocean's islands. Ocean Infinity is meeting with Malaysian officials, and if the government decides the evidence is credible, a new search will be greenlit. European Union regulators have fined Apple $2 billion. The EU says Apple interfered with its competitors, such as Spotify, by restricting them from telling users about cheaper streaming services that are not iPhone apps. The EU says Apple's decision impacted many European consumers' free choice of music streaming subscriptions. Apple denies the accusations and says it will appeal the fine.
2 more Orange County cities are cracking down on local street vendors. Anaheim and Rancho Santa Margarita are joining the growing list of OC cities that are tightening regulations on food trucks and street vendors. Lawmakers are caught in a tricky spot as vendors argue that mostly immigrants are trying to make a living for their families, while on the other hand, businesses argue that they create an unfair advantage due to the lack of permits and health codes needed for mobile vendors to operate. Although both cities voted unanimously to increase regulations, they also reduced barriers for vendors to get permits. It's been an unusually rainy winter here in Southern California, and that has impacted some of the region's most popular tourist attractions. Several theme parks had to take an unusual step of closing for several hours or even an entire day in Anaheim. Disneyland closed early for the day on February 4th and 5th and made its tickets valid for a year after their date of issue if they hadn't been used yet. For those who lost out on a visit to Knoxbury Farms here in Orange County because of the rain, the park has made those tickets valid through April 28th. In San Diego, SeaWorld's whether or not policy gives guests a free ticket even if there's inclement weather. Legoland has a similar policy, a rainy day promise where you can return any day of the year if bad weather spoils your visit.
You know, Tegan, one thing that I love about Orange County is all the awesome small businesses that we have.
Me too, Tess. Our feature reporter Dan Batson had the opportunity to go to one this past weekend and learn what they are doing. And I heard he had some yummy food too. Dan is here live in the studio to tell us more.
Thanks, Tegan and Tess. For 40 years, the Mondragon Family Market has been serving the Anaheim community. Recently, the city of Anaheim recognized their hard work, and so I went to find out more. Take a look.
The Mondragon Market is family owned and operated. It has a long history here in the heart of Anaheim near the Packing District. But the current owners say it hasn't always been an easy venture.
It's a roller coaster, up and down. So I took over it 10 years ago with my wife, and it was really tough because it was pretty much like a ghost town in here. It was almost everything was empty, and just little by little, just thriving and just not giving up.
Jason's father, Atilano, started the market in 1978, where he would serve fellow Bracero immigrants with his wife. Jason and Marina took over in 2014 and continue to work with the same passion for service and the Anaheim community Atilano had.
We are really wanting to be a pillar for resources for our local community. We have a lot of working families in our neighborhood, So we really want to be that safe space for families to come in and enjoy something to eat. And we also have Wi-Fi available if they need it.
In February, the market was recognized by the Anaheim City Council for its service to the community. Mayor Pro Tem Natalie Rubalcava presented the award.
It was awesome. It was like an honor. I was like, wow, we're actually kind of think you're not being noticed. And then from somebody like something like Anaheim, the city, it's like, wow, we're doing something right, because it's not just customers, it's more like family, it's friends, it's people come in, we know them by name, so it's really awesome to be noticed.
Before leaving, I was told I had to try a torta. I watched in awe as Adriana crafted the sandwich, and I think my reaction speaks for itself.
It honestly was the best sandwich I've ever had. You can get them each and every day of the week at the Mondragon Market in Anaheim. Mondragon also caters large events, and you can find them on Instagram at Mondragon Family Market. I'm Dan Batson. Back to you, Tegan and Tess.
Thanks for joining us. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at Chapman News and on YouTube at chapmannews.tv. I'm Tess Martinelli.
And I'm Tegan Calley. Tune in next Tuesday for another edition of Chapman News.